So you're welcome to today's class. As usual, my name is Samuel Anyaile, and this is day 3 of our class. Even though, yes, the video that we are using is a video for the first class of our normal course on TheMobileProf.com. This session is a 15-minute session that is taking a small section of each of the original curriculum. So we are dealing with class 1 this week, which is setup. We'll discuss everything there is that is possible to discuss under setup of our systems this week. So yesterday we discussed how to go to Play Store, how to download TheMox from Play Store, and then how to configure ZSH on that TheMox so that our screen looks better than the default bash that comes with our download or our first installation. Now I want to continue to install a few other things. Just get ready for the work that needs to be done as we progress with this training. So the next thing we would need to do is to install a few applications. Remember, PKG install helps you install different applications on your system. Now, because you are using PKG and you are not using a apt, for example, you can use apt on the TheMox. Apt is the default package manager or application manager for Ubuntu and Debian systems. But with apps, as I explained yesterday, you need to do an apt update first, usually, before you do an app install, just so that the most recent repos are pulled before you do an installation on the system. But with PKG on TheMox, when you do PKG install, in the background it does a PKG update first. After doing that PKG update, it now continues to PKG install. So you don't need to do updates because the system would automatically do updates for you. If you do updates, it's not wrong. It's not going to take anything from you. But just know that it's not an oh God moment because the system would already do a PKG update for you. Now, the things you want to install on zip. This is important for me because I'm thinking a lot of things you'll be downloading would be zipped in different formats. You need something that can unzip. Whatever it is you're pulling from the web or from different servers, you need something that can unzip it on your system. By default, Android does not have an application that comes by default used for unzipping of documents. So having unzip as an application on your Linux environment is a really, really strong one. It's a really, really important thing. And it will also help you, because it's a two-way thing. It will also help you zip or compress files so that you can send data and not just in receiving and expanding or unzipping the data in different formats, as I said earlier. We also want to install Git. Git is a really cool thing. It's game changing for a lot of developers. The idea being that with Git is what is called a version control system, a VCS. So what that does is that your code, as you're writing your code, you're able to keep track of all of the changes that you've made over time. That helps you in one, not losing your data. Two, being able to revert to an old version of your application or of your build, especially when you've done something that messes up your application somehow and you do not know how to go back. or you've closed that file and opened it, so undo is not going to work. So it's like an undo, but a more powerful version of undo, because usually when you are maybe typing a Microsoft Word document and then you undo, it allows you undo the things that you've written, the things that you've typed, and all of that. However, if you close that file and you open the file again, your undo does not work. Your undo does not work because undo is stored temporarily in memory. It's not stored permanently. However, with Git, you're able to save each snapshot of your, save a snapshot of your application states. At every given time, you're able to save a snapshot of it. So if you want to go back to that snapshot, it's easy for you to go back to how the code was, the last time you saved it, or on a specific date, usually based on what you used to save it, or the code ID that Git would use to save your snapshot. Now, we'll still delve a lot into Git later, but this is just an installation that will help us to prepare for when we would delve in depth into Git. And the first thing you do after installing Git is to configure it. So on every system, you need to configure Git. If you do not configure it, by the time you want to do a setup or you want to do a commit on your application, it would complain. It would complain that you've not set it up. It will complain that you've not set it up. So on every system that you use, on every actual device that you use, you need to at least configure it once. After configuring once, it doesn't complain again, because you configure both what name are you using, what email are you using, because as you're writing code on that device, it should be able to tell you, as you're writing code on that device, it should be able to tell you, okay, yeah, this is who is setting up this code, and this is this is what you want to do with the code that you are working with. So others are able to also see who is it that is writing this code. So there's some kind of accountability to it if it's able to tag, the owner of the code to the code. So every device has to be configured. So there's a reason why I paused this video. Yeah. You would notice that by pinching the screen or by expanding the screen, you can increase the size of the font on TheMox. So if you want to increase your font size, all you have to do is put 2 fingers on the screen. You see it happen now. Hold on. So put 2 fingers on the screen and expand, and it would make it clearer. If you want to contract, put 2 fingers on the screen and pinch, and you look at that. Look at that. I just increased the size of that of my font, so it's easier to see. So first thing we'll configure, again, going back to Git, is our username. So you do git config global flag. When you see dash dash, that means that's a flag. Global flag, user.name, TheMobileProf. So I want every commit I make on this system to be identified as being made by a user called TheMobileProf. Now I want to configure my email. A good thing to remember when configuring email is that there is a resource we'll still see in the future called GitHub, which is a public repo store for your Gits. Always make sure that your email on your Git, on your system, is the same email as the one on your GitHub. It just makes it easier to be able to know who it is, and it's better so that you can do validations on github.com. So in this instance, we want to use TheMobileProf.com@gmail.com as our user email on this device. And so we finish configuring our Git. Remember, you configure your username first, and then you configure your email next. So by doing this configuration, every system you set up Git for the first time, that should be the first thing you do. Yeah, you can start using Git init and all of that. So by the time you add and commit, it will begin complaining immediately that you have not configured this device if you don't go through this process. So remember this process in case for some reason you jump it and then it's coming back to request for it, you know what is being requested for. The next command we want to look at would be just to find out the version of Git that we've installed. Git flag version. Remember, anything that is a dash on a command line is called a flag. Now, what's the meaning of a flag? A flag kind of modifies the commands that you are giving or the file that you are accessing. So in this instance, you would have different flags doing different things. So for example, the first when we're doing git config -- global, it's saying, okay, we want to set up a global configuration setting for email and for username. And so for the username, we have done if the mobile and then for the email we have done TheMobileProf.com@gmail.com. So that dash is a flag that modifies the command. So every command you see on Linux has some modifications that you can use to enhance what that command does, or you can use to change the scope of that command. You'll still see a lot of that later. By the time we start actually dealing with each command or commands on Linux terminal. But just remember that dash is a flag that helps you. So that's like a full name flag. Usually most flags have two versions. There's a short version and there's a long version. The long version is preceded by a dash and then the name of the flag that is modifying the command. The short version is preceded by one dash, which is dash and then a character, usually one character. Because for a lot of commands, when you want to know the version, or a lot of applications, when you want to know the version of the application, you can use a -v, so the name of the command, and then space, -v would usually give you the version. If it doesn't work, do the command --version. So what that means is that that particular command does not have a short version, does not have a short option for its version flag. So these are the things you'll be seeing so that you don't get confused when you're writing the command. When you write a command and there is one dash and then a character, that is a flag. When you write a command and there are two dashes and a word, that is also a flag. Both of them are the same thing. One is shorter than the other. In this instance, we are using the long version, which is git -- version, to get the version of Git that we are using in this installation. I'm sure that by the time you do your installation, you would get a different version of Git. Now, something else worthy of note that's not really covered in this video is the keyboard that we use. So again, most phones' keyboards has been customized for use with the phone. If you notice, your phone keyboard is a bit different from your laptop keyboard, for example. Even though it still retains the QWERTY configuration, that means the characters are usually in the right order where they should be. Apart from, for example, if you're using like a physical keyboard, some phones have physical keyboards. Then you now have to toggle. So you can have a physical keyboard that has number 1 having ABC. So when you press 1, when you press that button once, that's 1. If you press it twice, it gives you A. If you press it twice, it gives you B. Then most Android phones have virtual keyboards, so there is no physical keyboard. And you notice that they are QWERTY keyboards. They start with QWERTY and so on and so forth. The challenge, however, is that there are some special keys that you need in programming that that is not covered with most Android keyboards. For example, you really need your control key. You really need your control key. And it has to be accessible to you, because many times when you're working and you're rapidly doing something, it's easier if some of those keys are reachable for you. Secondly, you need your escape key. Especially when you're working with a program like Vim or Vim, you need your escape key to come back to your normal mode. And then you also need your navigation keys, the up arrow key, the down arrow key, the left arrow key, the right arrow key. This simple key, your tab key, is very, very important. These little keys that are present on a desktop or on a laptop, but that are missing on an Android phone, would make a whole world of difference if they are present. So you see a lot of people who are coding on their mobile, they make out the time, go to Play Store and download the Hackers keyboard. So you can go to Play Store and you download the Hackers keyboard. It's called the Hackers keyboard. It gives you access to most or all of the keys that a PC would have on your phone, and it performs the same function. In fact, by the time you turn to landscape mode, for example, instead of portrait mode, you actually see the keyboard arranged properly the way it would be arranged on your PC or on your desktop. It requires a bit of editing, which I'll point to in this tutorial. The Hackers keyboard is the keyboard of choice for me when I'm working. So go download Hackers keyboard and enable it. The next thing I want to consider is an installation of a software that would want to use to show something. Want to install wget or wget, different pronounced in different ways, and nano. There is an application called Curl, or a program called Curl, C-U-R-L, that you're able to use to get external content. So for example, you want to download a video or a movie from a website to your phone. If you know the URL of that movie, you can use Curl to download the movie directly to your phone on your TheMox without needing to use a browser if you know the URL. The same thing with wget. It's just that I've noticed that Curl seems more powerful, and it's usually more used, actually more used in programming, especially when you are trying to consume a resource, maybe an API resource that we want to get access to. Usually we use Curl to be able to get access to that. Core comes pre-installed with TheMox. wget doesn't come pre-installed with TheMox. Most of the things wget can do, Core can do it too, so you can live without wget. But I want to point out how to uninstall a program in a subsequent video. So I want to use this wget as our guinea pig in doing that uninstallation we'll do in the future. But right now, know that wget is about, it does about the same thing that Core does. The Core is more powerful than wget, in my opinion. Then the other thing we want to install is a Nano. If you're an experienced developer, you would know that there is a difference between a Notepad, for example, and a VS Code on Windows. There are several powerful features that you can get from VS Code that makes coding on VS Code easier for you. These features are sorely lacking on Notepad, which makes it harder to code on Notepad. Now, bear in mind that the code you write on Notepad will run just as well as the code you write on VS Code. But it's just that one will help you and make it more efficient for you to write your code. The other one is kind of basic and dumb, and would do the same, would output the same code, but it wouldn't help you in delivering or enhancing or optimizing the building of that code. So the same way, VS Code is a more elaborate software. It's a more effective and efficient software than Notepad. It's also the same way an application like Vim or NeoVim, which we'll still discuss in the future, is better, way better than a basic application like a Nano. So the Nano is like Notepad, while Vim and NeoVim is like VS Code and Sublime Text and all the other code editors, not the text editor. So in installing Nano, we are saying we are installing a basic text editor that we can use to edit text of any kind on our system. It's not powerful, but it is very efficient and can deal with a lot of text-based files with different extensions. So it's like a Swiss Army knife that is dumbed down. It's dumbed down and can handle many things, but it's not very complicated. So again, that confirmation, do you want to install this on your system or not? If you choose Y, that's a yes, and it installs that on your system. And then we eventually exit our application.